What we have done so far is with this axial skeleton and coming into the appendicular part of the skeleton. In the appendicular part, we are talking about the limbs. As you know, we use the word forelimb and hind limb. Forelimb and hind limb. Forelimb stands for hands and arms. While hind limbs, legs and foot or feet, you can say. That is the part which make them up. And here is the diagram that describes the two. Now, when we're looking at the forearm, we have got the shoulder blade. This shoulder blade is what we call as pelvic. Pelvic girdle. Oh, sorry. Pectoral. Whereas the one for this is pelvic girdle. That is, which includes the shoulder blade here, followed by this collarbone that we call as clavicle, and the joint, the shoulder joint. From there onwards comes the arm bones, that is the humerus on top from the shoulder joint up to the elbow point. This is the elbow joint. And from elbow starts two bones, radius and ulna, which end up at the wrist, from where arise these carpals, metacarpals, and then phalanges. Phalanges are these parts, these bones that you see in your fingers, right? Now, same in the leg region, we have got ilium making up the pelvic girdles, girdle, hip girdle, having the ischium shaped that makes up what we call as the femur bone, the largest of the bone. Out of 206 bones, if we look at the largest is femur, whereas the smallest is the stirrup, ear bone. In the middle ear, the third bone is the stirrup, which is the smallest bone, whereas femur is the largest bone, largest or longest bone. While the strongest, as we discussed earlier, is the lower mandible, that is the lower jawbone is the strongest bone. Then we have got the kneecap, followed by two bones, tibia and fibula. Just like in forearm there is radius and ulna, here is tibia and fibula. Followed by here are the carpals, here it turns to tarsals. Tarsals, metatarsals and phalanges. Just like in the hand. We have carpals, metacarpals and phalanges. Here we have tarsal, metatarsals and phalanges. Now, there is a slight difference. Let's be careful. There is slight difference in the forearm and the hind arm. That is the forelimb and the hind limb. And then the difference is of two bones. Difference is of two bones. Because if we look at the wrist, this part I am holding it carries 16 bones. But when I look at my ankle, where my foot starts, that carries 14 bones. And hence, this difference of 2 bones makes a difference in the number of the bones in the forelimb and the hind limb, that is the hands and legs. Am I clear? Right. Let's proceed to the question so far asked. The total number of bones in both hands is 54. Next, see the correct. The total number of bones in both arms is both arms. That is from shoulder blade up to this point, where the carpals have started, that is the wrist has started. One is humerus, radius and ulna. That means 1 plus 2, 3. 3 in right arm, 3 in left. Then that makes 6. Next. The total number of phalanges in both hands is both hands. Phalanges. These partitions that you see. 1, 2, 3. 3 into 4. 12. Thumb has got only 2. That makes 12 plus 2, 14. And the question is both hands. 14 into 2, 28. That is 3 into 4, 12 plus 2 makes 14 and 14 into 2 makes 28. And hence 28 is the correct option. Next, Sesmoid bone is a part of arm, hand, pectoral girdle or pelvic girdle. Look here, when we talk of the Sesmoid bone is a sort of the bones that are found at the joints, at the bigger joints. And it is the part of what we call as arm bone. Either you find it knee region or at the shoulder region or the hip regions. They are sort of some sort of fibrous bones. So A is the correct option. A primate with an opposable thumb is. Opposable thumb means here the joint thumb. If my hand is like this, the thumb is joined to the phalanges, to the fingers. But if I look at my arm, if I stretch it, here are my fingers and the thumb is opposite to them. I can pick this pen easily like this. Here's the pen, I can pick it using my fingers and thumb. Carefully watch a monkey keep a pen and watch a monkey to pick it. Will he easily pick it? No, he can't. Because he does not have the opposable thumb. First, what he will do, he will try to pick it with using his lips. Once he has managed to pick it through the lips, then he will hold it using the hands like this. It's only the humans who are capable of picking the things even like the needles. If you give a needle to a monkey, he may not be able to pick, or to an ape or to a gorilla. No, they can't. Because they don't have got the opposable thumb. Humans are more advanced or the most advanced in the primates among mammals because of the presence of opposable thumb. That is one of the characteristics along with the mental ability or ability to speak. Right? So opposable thumb is the characteristic of humans. None of the primates. Next. Which of the following is correct? Longest and shortest. Sternum. Sternum is this thigh bone in the front here. Frontal bone at the back. This part, not back, at the front. This forehead is the frontal part. Humerus and fibula. Humerus is in the hand. Fibula is in the lower leg. Femur and stirrup. Femur is the thigh bone. We also call it thigh bone. Thigh bone is the femur. Stirrup is the ear ossicle. They are the shortest or smallest. Femur, largest or longest. Mandible is the lower jaw. It is the strongest one, but it can't be called as largest and longest. Coccix is the tailbone, which is just a fusion of 4 bones into one. So the correct option is C. That femur is the longest bone while stirrup is the smallest bone. Next, the stronger the body bone is. Again, femur, humerus, scapula, lower jaw or mandible bone. Femur is the longest, we have just done in the previous question, is the longest bone, but is not the strongest. Humerus is this bone attached to the upper shoulder. Scapula is the shoulder blade. And then lower jaw, mandible, lower jaw, lower mandible is the only movable bone in the human skull or the cranium, and this is the one which is the strongest of all the bones, of all the 206 bones, 206 bones present in the body. So option D is the correct option. Next, collarbone is a part of skull, ribcage, pectoral girdle or pelvic girdle. Collarbone. Collarbone is what we call as clavicle. This bone on which our collar rests. Right? Either we call it collarbone because of collar, or we call the collar of the shirts because the collarbone it rests on this bone. It's either way around, you can undertake it anyway. But that's the collarbone. Now, what shall we consider? Shall we consider it as a part of the skull, or shall we consider it as a part of the pectoral girdle? Because pelvic girdle it can't be. It is somewhere down in the body. After the vertebrae. Ribcage starts after this. Skull is above it. And hence, it is a part of the pectoral girdle. Collarbone is the part of the pectoral girdle that it comes like this. From here comes this shoulder blade, and from shoulder blade arise this humerus. There is shoulder blade. There is humerus. And this is the collar bone or clavicle. So C be the correct option. Next, Sesmoid bone is a part of, again I think it's sort of repetition, that Sesmoid bone is a part of the pectoral girdle. The arm, the pectoral girdle, where we see the bones like knee, shoulder blade, that's where this Sesmoid bone is present. Then the total number of bones in both legs, how many? There is femur, radius, ulna, and then there is one what we call as patella. That means if I go back, here, can you see this? That is the fourth bone in the leg. So the number, it comes to 8. Instead of 6 in the forelimb, that is 8 here. Then the only bone not found attached to any other bone in the body is, as we already learned about the hide bone, that's the correct option. Sternum is attached to the ribs. Collarbone is a part of the pelvic girdle. Pectoral girdle. Floating ribs are again attached. At one end they are attached to the sternum, or attached at the posterior end they are attached to the vertebral column, but in front they are not attached to the sternum, and hence they are called floating ribs. That is just like from the back they are coming in, they come like this and they end here like this. The other bones, they come from the front and then attached. This is the sternum. Sternum part. And these are the bones coming from the vertebral column and attaching them to the sternum. While this is the vertebral column. So these are not attached to the sternum. They are just floating. They are not unattached. That means they are hence called as floating ribs. Now, a hide bone is the only bone in the neck region that supports the neck, and is also the only bone which is not found attached to any other bone in the body. Right? Then the most complex and biggest of the body joint is, there are a number of the joints: elbow joint, ankle joint at the foot, knee joint at the knee, gliding joint in the neck. Gliding joint means allowing, like this, sideway movements to the right or left. Now, if we look at all these joints, what we realize, the knee joint is the most complex of all the joints. It is also the biggest of the joint and is also the most complex of the joints, because the movements it bears or it provides a person when he's walking or running or sitting or swimming, whatever the case may be, the knee joint is the one. That's why it lies well protected, if you know, by what you call as knee cap. Next, which of the following is correct about the number of the bones in the human hands and legs in the upper and lower axial skeleton? Now, the total number is what? 64. 16 are in the ribs, 14 are in the ankle. And hence the number is 64 and 62. That is the correct option for the number of the bones in the forelimb and in the hands and in the feet areas. That is the forelimbs and the hind limbs. But it is same both in case of male and female, such that the total number of the bones in male and female remain the same. While there is a difference in the number of the bones in the forelimbs and hind limbs, and the difference is by number 2. Because of the difference in the number of the bones in the wrist and the ankle region. Next, the fluid present in the cavity between the two bones of a movable joint is called pericardial fluid. You know, heart is the one that lies protected by the pericardium, and hence between the cardiac muscles and the pericardium, the fluid present is the pericardial fluid. Pleural fluid is associated with the lungs. Synovial fluid is the correct option, because if I look at a bone joint, it's like this. This. Then on the inside, if you see, there is a membrane like this on both bones, and then in between this membrane there is a fluid. That we call as synovial fluid. What happens? And then these bones are attached to each other by what we call as ligaments. Clear? And now, as the person grows old, ages, what happens? The volume of the synovial fluid present at the joints, at the synovial joint, the movable joints, it reduces. So that now, as the joints move, right, they rub against each other. And that rubbing of the joints causes severe pain, because as we studied that the bone is the living structure, well supplied with the blood and the nerves. So as it rubs, the nerves causes this feeling of pain. Now what the person has to do, either is to replace them, have it filled with the fluid, or in some cases, particularly in a condition called what we call as gout, I think you might have heard of. What happens? The uric acid it gets crystallized in form of fine crystals and get deposited in the space between these joints. So as the person moves, these crystals, they scratch or they rub against the walls, inside walls of the synovial membrane, and that causes severe pain to the person. So either it is because of the uric acid crystals, or because of the aging factor, or because of other reason that might have led to the loss of synovial fluid, that the person feels the pain that we call as osteoarthritis or arthritis in simple words. So it is the synovial fluid which is present in the cavity between the bones, and particularly in case of the synovial joint. If it is a permanent joint means like joint like this. If this is one bone, then there is another bone. And the two are joined together by sutures. that they can't move. So they are not synovial anymore. They are non-synovial without any synovial fluid. But in case if the joint is synovial, the fluid pattern is the synovial fluid. Next. The two bones in the joint are held together by. Now, in the previous question, as I mentioned, that here is one bone and here is another bone. The two bones are interlinked by what is ligament. What we call as ligament. Now, in case if a muscle comes from top and attaches the bone below the joint, then this is what we call as tendon. That is, the tendon attaches muscle to bone, whereas ligament attaches bone to bone. Muscle fiber is out of question, and so are the cartilage is out of question. They are a type of connective tissue. Both tendon and ligament are the type of the connective tissue proper. The only difference in the two is that tendon attaches the muscles to the bone, where the ligament attaches one bone to the another bone, particularly in the case of the synovial joints, which allows the movement. Next. Now, so that's the last question. And hence, students, these were some of the questions that have been asked as they are, or somewhat manipulated form in the past exams, while you can look for the other questions, but somehow one way or other you will find those questions, just manipulated form of these questions that we have discussed today. Fine, thank you.